Hi, everyone. My name is Spencer Brown, and I am Marketing Support Analyst at Dickinson and Associates, and I would like to welcome you to our webinar on automation with SAP Conversational AI and Intelligent Robotic Process Automation. I would like to thank you all for joining and also point out that if any questions arise throughout the webinar, you can ask them via the Q&A button within the Zoom application. We will answer some questions toward the end of the webinar, and if there are any questions we do not get to, we will follow up directly after the presentation. So with that, I will hand things over to Rob Jerome.
Thanks, Spencer. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Well, first, I'd like to thank everybody for coming to the webinar today. The topic today is automation, specifically SAP's offerings for conversational artificial intelligence and intelligent robotic process automation, RPA. You've probably heard these terms. You've probably watched maybe perhaps some videos on them, but today, the context in which we're going to speak is really in that explanation or support of what SAP calls the intelligent enterprise. So when most folks think of automation, their reaction is, well, cost savings, I can automate something. And sure, that's part of it. But really, as you go through and you understand these applications and these offerings, this is really about what we like to call experience management. So automation is really intended not just to result in efficiencies and cost savings, but also help the way or provide a better experience for your customers, for people within your organization to interact with data, with processes and systems. So keep that in mind when we talk about things like the digital worker. So it's not just about cost savings, it's about, at the end of the day, the experience management. So today, I'm speaking, obviously. So Rob Jerome, RJ, Vice President of Innovation and Technology here at Dickinson, and I'm ultimately responsible for the platform and technology group here, strategy of the company and our business development efforts. You're gonna hear from Shikhar Verma. Shikhar is a director at Dickinson, and Shikhar is actually our intelligent technology practice lead. So when we think about intelligent technologies like automation as one example, Shikhar is ultimately responsible for that. And then Marcus is going to speak, and Marcus is a consultant here at Dickinson, and Marcus is the guy that actually implements the software. So we're going to hear right from the field as to how the technology works, how you implement it, and the framework which SAP provides to facilitate that implementation. Next slide. At a high level, we're going to go through a company overview very briefly. Automation, the future footprint. What does that really mean? Well, we're going to talk in terms of what SAP calls the business technology platform, automated through the intelligent enterprise. So intelligent technologies is one of the 4 pillars of that business technology platform that SAP uses to support innovation. The others are database and data management, analytics, and application development. So we're going to talk a little bit about why automation, the automation enabled through the intelligent enterprise, and then specifically today, 2 technologies, conversational AI and RPA. We're going to go through the architecture. We're going to get to some business cases. What does this mean for a customer, right? If you're an S4 customer, perhaps you're not an S4 customer. What does it mean for a customer? And then the business benefits beyond or for automation. And then finally, a demo so that you can see the live system. Next slide. Just briefly, a company overview. If you know us, that's fabulous. If you don't, we are Dickinson and Associates, and our tagline is business people who know SAP. We actually received that tagline, or the idea of the tagline came from a customer. Our first customer, frankly, described us as people that came from industry just happen to know SAP. And what you'll find at Dickinson is a lot of us come from that background. We've been on the customer side, if you will, of SAP. So we've worked in industry. We've worked in some cases, big consulting, and we've come to this company called Dickinson that focuses on ERP, which is S/4HANA at the digital core. Innovation to us is analytics, is things like the topics of today, intelligent technologies. And we implement the SAP software across North America, South America, Europe, and Asia. We've got about 160 full-time consultants. And what you'll find with us is we've got a very seasoned team, on average 17 years of experience, but more importantly, in our view, 21 years of business experience. headquartered in Chicago, but we've got offices in Cincinnati. We do most of our application managed support out of that office, and an office in India, in Hyderabad, where we do additional AMS services, solution engineering, and frankly, a lot of our development work. So for automation technologies such as RPA and CAI, a lot of that work is done out of our office in India. New York City, Scottsdale, and where I live, Annapolis, Maryland. So that's who Dickinson is. If there's any questions about the company, we're happy to follow up. Go ahead, Spencer. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Shikhar Verma, again, our practice lead for intelligent technologies, who's going to talk through how the world is changing.
All right, thanks, RJ. Before I, take a deep dive into the technologies and the stack which RJ was referring to on the CAI, which is conversational AI, and then you have the robotic process automation, which is the RPA. Let's spend a couple of minutes on, how the world has changed and is constantly changing towards us, right? So we started this off as a part of industrial revolution way back in 1960s and 80s. In fact, it started even before that when Model T was introduced as a part of the first assembly line by Henry Ford way back in 1908. And that was a concept where, the whole concept of products came up through assembly line. And that got changed in the late 1990s and 2000 when the supply chains become global, when the manufacturing actually, became from a vertically integrated organization to a horizontally integrated organization, whereby, expertise in terms of design, expertise in terms of manufacturing of the components was kind of outsourced. Then came the era of digital transformation, which we all have seen through, where everything went from Web 1.0 to Web 2.0. E-commerce came into existence. Everything went online. We could do transactions online. I can buy anything which has been manufactured outside US or within US. I don't need to actually go to the store to procure, my goods and services. But where the world is going to be changing next in the next decade will be in the direction of intelligent enterprise. And what that means is it's not an integrated supply chain. It is way beyond that. It is way beyond the arms and boundaries of process and people, where processes are going to become more intelligent, and through the use of these technologies like chatbots, like RPAs, where processes will be able to take their own call to take corrective actions or to make their own decisions based on how they're being trained, based on what kind of data set is being involved, and that will lead us to a completely different evolution. And let's see what in the next section, in the next slide, what's the market research is saying about it. So if you look at this, 85% of the human interaction by 2020 will be without and interacting with a human. That means you're going to go through a chatbot interface. That's what Gartner is saying. Another thing that Gartner is coming up with is 70% of our customer interactions will involve emerging technologies like machine learning, automation, chatbots. So the whole customer service paradigm is going to get changed. The way we interact with the overall e-commerce channel is going to get changed. The way we experience, what RJ was talking about, the whole experience economy, everything is going to move towards an experience through automated bots or processes. Now, there are different levels of automation involved in an organization. And, some of the things are probably being put into place right now as well. Let's see, what levels are there in the next section. So if you look at this, there are 3 levels of automation. And here there's a typical example of an automation. So let's say there's a material planner called Paul, and he is looking at his inventory levels. He's raising the POs. He plans for the materials, semi-products, semi-finished goods or finished goods, or the raw materials. And he's looking for his inventory levels, and he sees that the inventory levels are kind of going down. So what he can do in terms of the levels of automation, the first thing that he can do is manually resolve that situation. And that's something which people do today. Or to an extent, we automatically send out an email to the supplier where the supplier will actually ship back the shipments, and we'll cover we have covered for our fault lines. The next level of automation is when you do the manual override, where the process automatically sends it out see whether your MRP is running, and you're seeing that something is going to get failed. You will not have the materials to actually produce the order quantity, and it will send out a notification. But the last one is where we are heading towards, which is a self-learning kind of an algorithm where, depending on the supplier old transactions, how many times they have failed, or in terms of, the data derived from the analytics, the process will automatically be able to shift the gears and probably procure that raw material from a different supplier if we are getting delayed. So that kind of intelligence is going to get built in the processes using the robotic process automation or the artificial intelligence. Now let's go to the next slide to see some of the sections, that the pillars of automation that will be involved. So there are basically three pillars in terms which enable the automation overall as a part of the ecosystem. So you have conversational AI, which is the chatbots, which helps you interact with the system and gets you answers on the fingertips. You don't need to actually search for the information. You don't need to go to a transaction to get the information. You don't need to go to a report or a dashboard to actually get that information. And the second pillar is the robotic process automation, which are the bots, enabling the intelligent processes, and giving the intelligence to the processes to make their own decisions based on how you train them. And the third one is a data intelligence, which is a machine learning algorithm, where the bots, given the historical data set, given the decisions being made historically, the bots will automatically train themselves. They start developing the context within the industry, within the domain that they are operating in. And in today's session, we'll be just focusing on two capabilities, the chatbots and the RPAs. But where does this lead to? We talked about how we have evolved in the industry. We just talked about the pillars of the automation, but all of this is leading us to something big. And the next section, I want to highlight the importance of intelligent enterprise. So if you go to the next slide, if you look at this picture, we're moving towards a bigger thing here. We're not talking about some specific technologies. We're talking about a coherent ecosystem, an integrated ecosystem where the people, the processes, and their transactions, along with their experience, are moving in one single line. They're basically interacting with each other. If you look at the right-hand side in the picture, you have the digital platform, you have the cloud platform, where all the innovation is happening today, where you're building application extensions, where you're doing the integrations. And then on the left-hand side is where your core is sitting today, which can be your S4HANA applications, which can be your old ECC stacks, which can be your C4HANA or any other business application. And joining these two worlds to make the intelligent enterprise is the set of these tools and technologies like AI, machine learning, bots. So if you look at this, this is a coherent ecosystem. This is not just about selling one technology or focusing on one technology to solve a problem. We need to look at it as an end-to-end process, which involving all these multiple tools and technologies so that you can get the answers on time, so that these processes become more intelligent and they can start making decisions which will reduce your cost and and have your overall process become more efficient. If you go to the next slide, is an architecture diagram at a very high level, which I just talked about conceptually as a concept in the previous slide. So if you look at this, this is the S4HANA on the left-hand side, which can be an on-premise, non-cloud deployment. And you have all these business events, your business processes and your logic sitting over there. And on the right-hand side is where the innovation takes place in the cloud platform. All these tools and technologies like RPAs, the business rules, the data services, the analytics, the data intelligence, or the AI will be sitting in the cloud platform, which is the SAP Cloud Platform, and enabling you with the coherent ecosystem where they will be actually getting integrated as a part of the overall process design, so that the processes are not just baked in or not just designed from the from the concept of taking something from the customer and giving it back to the customer, but it's basically designed with an intelligence baked into this. Let's go to the next slide. Now, to start with, there are different packages available for the RPAs and the CAI in the cloud platform. And this slide actually gives you a glimpse of it. So our service portfolio for automation, if you look at it, if you actually want to go for a CAI, that means you just want to build the conversational AI, you will need a conversational AI service pack from SAP as a part of building the bots on the cloud platform. You will also need the application runtime, which is where you build the actual logic, which works on the natural language processing, for whatever interactions you're doing with the bot. And web design, Web IDE Studio, which is now going to be transformed into the business application studio. It's something of an IDE that you will need for your developers to actually build the bot. Now, apart from that, you have some optional packages that are available, but they're not mandatory to be there. This is just to build, like the portal and the portal administrator. If you want to host certain custom applications, you need them as a part of your offering, but otherwise you don't need it. They're like optional. And the integration suite, that's a service that is available, which helps you consume data set from different sources. So again, this is optional. If you're directly integrating with S/4HANA, there are channels available through CPI where you can actually integrate it, with the S/4HANA. In case you are actually going to build only RPAs, apart from what I talked about in terms of the optional packages, you will need intelligent robotic process automation package to build the bots. And one of the things that we have to keep in mind, that it's better to get a CPEA license with the cloud platform, because then it's more of pay-per-use kind of a model. With CPEA license, you get plethora of services that are available for you at your doorstep, and you can just on a click of a button start consuming those services based on the cloud credits that you're receiving. So CPEA becomes more flexible given compared to a subscription-based model of cloud platform, because subscription-based model is attuned to only a particular service. And if you want to get a different service, let's say you started your journey with a chatbot and you want to actually go towards building an RPA, you will have to again go and procure a different service under the subscription-based model. Whereas in the CPEA model, on a click of a button, you can just go ahead and activate multiple services as and when your need arrives, as and when your business model gets changed. With that, I think I'll hand it over to Marcus, who will walk you through the details around chatbots and RPAs and their architecture. So Marcus?
Thank you, Shikhar. We can begin exploring SAP Conversational AI, the digital assistant that can simplify the adoption of artificial intelligence in the enterprise. SAP makes it really easy to get started building bots for your business with its end-to-end bot building platform. With the power of NLP and NLU, you'll have the ability to humanize conversational experiences, and it also provides automated customer service on-premise solutions. And we can think of this as a specific pre-packaged content for a specific industry. These are some of the most common use cases and benefits of a CAI. One of the more obvious use cases, and I'm sure one of the ones that we've all experienced to some degree, is through customer care. Clients have been on hold for extended durations and have been bounced around from agent to agent just to find the answer to the question. A chatbot is very beneficial with these type of inquiries. Another use case is for obtaining sales or after-sales information. A chatbot can obtain product information or maybe check the status of an order or even an invoice. The chatbots, when trained, can do a great job of handling those type of inquiries as well. For more employee services, such as HR or IT or analytics, bots do a good job of answering those employee requests that they get on a typical day. A request from an employee could be a password reset for IT, or it can be obtaining PTO or time off for HR. The chatbot can be trained to handle these tasks for that industry. Creating a conversational bot requires two main components: skills and a training data set. We can think of skills as a block of conversation with a specific context that your bot will be trained on. It will be able to execute an action when that skill is triggered. If we have a bot that's our sales report bot, we can have a skill called sales report. And it can be trained in the trained data sets through intents and sentences that will represent what we believe the bot could be asked from a user. So for my skill of sales report, I could think that somebody may ask, give me the October sales report, or show me the sales report for October. These features allow us to easily humanize a conversational experience with NLP and NLU. Now, NLP is natural language processing. We can think of this as a bridge of translation between the computer and human languages. NLU, or natural language understanding, will be what we consider reading comprehension. It allows the bot to take the input from the user and understand it based off by modeling our reading comprehension. It applies the human principles that we use on a daily basis. So for this instance, we have a sales report. The power of NLP and NLU, when trained, the bot will be trained on these sentences to trigger the sales report, which will then in turn bring an action that we've configured for the bot to respond with. So the bot will always know how to answer once that sales report is triggered. Although creating a chatbot is simplified with the power of SAP, it's always beneficial to have a good understanding of the architectural overview. We can dive deeper into this in our upcoming workshop, but for now I want to draw your attention to the bot's core at the bottom left. It's called the dialogue engine. And as you can see, it's really made up of two main components. The NLP, which would be the intents that I mentioned earlier under the trained data set, and the dialogue runtime, which would be the skills data set. This dialogue engine is what provides the basic functionalities for our bots. And when we need to integrate with external systems or enhance the functionalities of our bots, we can implement it with the bot's custom logic that we found on the SAP Cloud Platform. We'll have the ability to connect to additional services as well, such as Facebook Messenger, Slack, Microsoft Teams, things that we use in the business field on a daily basis. Or whatever it gets the message across to our users, or even in our own enterprise. So that was a little bit about the conversational AI. So we can now discuss the robotic process automation, or RPA. This is the process of automating business operations using what are known as software bots in order to save time and efforts. Now, it's very important to understand the term software robots. With RPA, you won't necessarily be able to see the bot at hand like you would with a chatbot, but instead, we'll be working behind the scenes, producing the automation services that we create. These bots can be what's known as unattended, meaning it can work from end to end without any human interaction, but we will have human supervision. Or it can be attended bots, which would be more of, it will stop at a certain point in its automation process to wait for a trigger from a human interaction, something that will require human judgment, because it won't be able to, or won't know how to proceed until we have that trigger. For mundane tasks, these bots are definitely have their purpose. And for instance, we typically work 8 hours a day, while a robot can work 24 hours. We will need breaks or time off so we don't get too overwhelmed with what we're doing on a day-to-day, while a bot doesn't need any PTO. There are many, many advantages to this logic and for general and basic repetitive tasks. The RPA architecture at a very high level can be composed into 3 components. At the top, you can see the intelligent RPA factory. And this is where the RPA bots will be held. It's like the repository for the bots. All the custom logic, all of the pre-existing packages and custom packages will be held here. At the bottom left, you can see the desktop studio. And this is, developers know it to be an IDE, or integrated developed environments, where we can work and enhance our bots with custom logics, or we can implement our own business logic into a bot. And just to the right of that, you'll see the desktop agent. This is nothing more than a bridge between the bot and the desktop. It's basically an on-premise agent. It can be from your desktop or any workstation that connects it to the intelligent RPA factory. I want to dive deeper into those three main components that build the RPA. So for the Cloud Factory, this is a screenshot that you can see where you can orchestrate and monitor however many bots that you have and monitor the automation. You can see represented by agents in the screenshot how many bots that could be currently going, what jobs are ongoing, and what jobs will be executed today. You can see any pre-packaged contents and any configurations that may need to be adjusted. You can get the status and history of jobs as well based off the triggers of the bot. The Desktop Studio, or the IDE, which is Integrated Development Environments, is basically where you can manage your project design, any specification that you want your bot to have, as well as testing. This could be another way of thinking about this would be a text editor. Many of us, if you are in the field, would have it as programming of Visual Studio Code or Sublime. And it's a place where you can debug and test in the console, as well as testing your bot before you release it to the Cloud Factory. There is auto generation of script and workflow, so you don't necessarily need a programming background to build the most simple bots. And again, the desktop agent is just how we will be able to register a new bots onto the factory. So if I have one on my laptop, that would work when I configure it through my desktop agent. I'm able to see to some degree what my bot is doing and what step in the automation process it currently is. You'll be able to enter and process data, and you can see the information on your screen. It's like a diagnosis panel for you to watch your bot to see what's happening and where it is. And if there are any triggers I need to attend, like I mentioned earlier, for those attended bots, the desktop agent is very beneficial for that. So knowing more about those two services, the conversational AI and the robotic process automation, or RPA, the question comes in, what can we automate in the business enterprise? What are the use cases for them? Well, mostly rule-based tasks that aren't dependent on human judgments, not necessarily. Data retrieval or from PDFs, scanned documents, or other formats are beneficial for CAI and RPA. Employee onboarding or offboarding, payroll process management, customer service are just some of the few industry-specific opportunities where these automation bots can be very beneficial. And they can also enhance our current business methods that we have today. Now, personally, we're very excited as humans to be interacting with these bots. Many of us have already integrated them into our daily lives, whether it's from a voice-based bot like Siri or Alexa, or maybe some of us have a robotic vacuum to mop and clean our floors. And even nowadays, there are some cars that include voice-controlled startups, which most of us are eager to have if we can in our lives. But professionally, there's a lot of job concern for job security, and there's worry if we'll be able to work with the bots if we don't have a programming background. Well, the good news is that just like the automated devices that we have in our house, or whether it's the vacuum or it's a start for the car, or it's Siri asking the weather, these automation bots are there to handle repetitive tasks for us, which will give us in the business industry more focus on the value-added work with occasional assistance. We can have more time for efficiency in back office processes. And because the platform for these automation services are so simple, programming is beneficial, but it's definitely not required for those most basic bots. As you can see on the right, you can see that this will be an interpretation of mine of what the HR industry can hold. So one of the more typical ones would be onboarding and PTO requests, which don't necessarily need too much human judgment, if at all. However, more specific tasks, such as performance management or job analysis or employee relations, those require humanistic approaches. And those are where we will need those face-to-face interactions. And that's where a bot would not be beneficial. But for those more repetitive or generic tasks like onboarding a new clients or offboarding an employee or getting those PTO requests or password resets for the IT industry, that's where automation can really benefit. And so I'm pleased to show you a brief demonstration displaying the power of conversational AI, just one of the automation services. Hi, my name is Marcus Gaston, and I'm happy to present a demonstration of a chatbot with enabled analytics. This is a custom bot that can be enhanced with the power of SAC. You will have accurate information at the palms of your hands, as well as a visual representation of the analytical table updating per your request. As you can see, I'm currently on my company's sales analysis application, and we can see a table with a considerable amount of data regarding our sales orders. I have a meeting with my team's director in 5 minutes. I don't have time to go through each line item in this table to find a needle in a haystack. Luckily, my company implemented this chatbot with enabled analytics to do all the heavy lifting for me. First thing I need is to access the current block orders. So let's begin by clicking the chatbot to begin the conversation. How many orders are currently blocked? As you can see, the bot gives me the information I need, as well as updating the table in the background of the page, so I have access to additional information if needed. This is great, but now I need access to the block orders for 2019. The bot would need to filter through that table that I currently don't see anymore to pull only information that I'm looking for. Alright, what about 2018? Perfect. You can see the data being pulled and updated dynamically based on my input. I can see high-level information within the conversation box, but also extended data being populated in the background. Now remember last meeting, my director said something about customer complaints regarding our delivery. So let's see how many orders are blocked due to delivery. Alright, this is helpful information. And I have time for one more question. I need the orders that are blocked by a specific sales area. If additional information is required, the bot is trained to obtain all necessary information before producing the results. So our bot also needs to know exactly which sales area. Which distribution channel? Which division? Perfect. With a few minutes to spare. This dynamic feature can go above and beyond with SAC. I had to head to my meeting, so I hope you enjoyed this demo. As you can see, this is only one example of how the bot can assist an associate. But with enough training and monitoring, this single bot can be enhanced to assist all levels of leadership. I can hand it over to Spencer for any Q&A.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you, team. It looks like we do have a handful of questions already. And again, if you have any other questions, please submit them using the Q&A button within the Zoom application, and we will try to respond here. But if we don't cover your question, we will follow up directly. So first question it looks like we have, how easy is the chatbot to maintain? Meaning, how often do I have to train a bot on the intents?
Yeah, so if you're general enough with your intents, it will require less maintenance in the end. Good practice would be to, for every skill that you create, there are at least 30 different intents. These intents are included once, but there's a variety of ways to ask questions. This is the power of the NLP and NLU that I was mentioning earlier. If a bot does not know how to answer an intent, there is a fallback method which can be viewed when you're monitoring your bot. You'll be able to see which question the bot tripped up on or stumbled on, and you can assess which skill set would best answer that question. And then once you have that question, you will be able to really make more questions around the one that the bot stumbled on. So next time, if a question is asked similarly, the bot will know what to do.
Great, thank you for that. Next question, can chatbot and RPA be integrated?
I can take that up. Yes, they can be. You know, we are actually building our own internal framework right now, which will be coming up in next 2-3 weeks. Both the technologies can be integrated, and that's where the value is. That's what, you know, we were talking about earlier. It's not about one specific silo technology. It's about a consortium of these technologies handshaking with each other, talking with each other, which will enable you towards your intelligent enterprise ecosystem. So a short answer to the question, yes, that can be integrated, yes.
Fantastic, thank you. Next question, can chatbot be integrated with SAP Analytics Cloud?
Yes, it can be integrated. There's a standard mechanism to actually integrate. In fact, SAC comes with its own chatbot, but there the chatbot that you get within SAC works within SAC itself. If you if you have taken a look at the demo that we just showed, you know, we basically have built our own IP where a chatbot can be overlaid on the top of any screen, and at the back end of the screen, I can have anything, not just SAC web screens. I can even have S4HANA Fiori screens. You know, I can integrate this with the ECC transactions coming out of WebDynPro. So our framework is so flexible and extendable that a chatbot interface can be introduced and induced within the overall core processes, as well as with the core analytics. So, yeah.
Thank you for that, Shikhar. And looks like the last question we'll take here, can RPA be built with artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities?
RPAs can surely be built with the MI and AL libraries, and that's one pathway we are exploring at this stage. Not only the AL library, ML libraries coming from SAP, we are also looking to go beyond the SAP ecosystem and probably leverage some of the other platform AI ML libraries if we can actually get them embedded. In fact, we have another IP in our stable where we have built chatbots using the voice to text integration, and that's something of keen interest to the customers these days. So we are continuously building our IPs and exploring different avenues here with the tools and technologies available within the SAP system as well as outside. And one of the good things that is happening right now with this whole intelligent enterprise and the evolution of the cloud platform is that the cloud platform is becoming more and more open. That means you just not always need to integrate it with the SAP technology toolset. The platform is so flexible now that you can actually go and connect and talk with some of the other specific context-driven APIs or libraries to build that kind of intelligent enterprise. So yes, ML can be induced, and that's one of our use cases we are working on right now.
Great to hear. Thank you for answering those questions. Thank you again to Shikhar and Marcus and RJ, as well as all of you attendees out there. So if we go to the next slide, I do want to point out on this next slide that we have a next step available for anyone who's looking for a deeper dive on the subject with a remote interactive workshop coming up in November. I will drop the link here in the chat. So if anyone is interested, we would encourage you to register today. And so with that, I will say thank you again for joining and have a great day.